people were born knowing exactly, or people came into life knowing exactly what they were meant to do, or what their vocation should be, or who they should be. That might be a relief for some people, but for others, not so much. Hello viewers, welcome to this episode of Ebenezer. Thank you for making this network part of your morning routine. Last week we had a conversation with Margaret. She introduced herself and told us something about her early life and the journey to her vocation, where it began in her late teenage years. Margaret will be back to continue the story and focus more on what her vocation has looked like, what the path looked like to get to her vocation, and share more about her vocation. Before she arrives, we want to recap and look back at this question of a vocation or a calling. What does it look like? In the dictionary, we saw that a vocation is defined as someone's employment or main occupation, regarded as worthy and requiring a great dedication. So what exactly have you dedicated your adult life doing? What difference has it made, both in your life, in your immediate family's lives, and in your environment, in your world at large? If you're a young adult contemplating, thinking about your vocation, the profession that's interesting you, that's appealing to you, what is it that you're about to dedicate your adult life into doing? We observed that in the pre-modern era, it was common for people to pick a certain profession and stick to that from the day they start formal employment to the day of retirement. They may work in different areas of that profession or just in one specific area. In the contemporary time, it's common to see people try different professions. They could work in one area for about maybe 10 years and then decide to explore a different path within the same profession, or take a detour completely, an exit into a new and different discipline altogether. Arriving in Canada as students, we arrived as students. My husband and my children were all on student status when we arrived in Canada. I was not a student in Canada. I was a student in South Africa, finishing my PhD thesis. So that meant that in Canada, I was a dependent. And as a dependent, I was allowed to take a job, to take an employment and work. It was necessary to get a job and earn some money to complement the bursary that the family was on. So I took up a job in the factory, general labor. I worked 7 nights a week, spent the day, part of the day sleeping, part of the day catering for family needs, and part of the day doing my research. I worked for about 7 years in the factory. Those were the years of settling and then transitioning into becoming landed immigrants. It was good. It was an opportunity to provide for my family. The job paid well. It had medical and dental, health and dental benefits. It's with that job that we actually got the loan to get our first house. We bought our first house. We got our mortgage with that income from the factory. But I always knew this was temporal. This was necessary for the transitional period to make ends meet. After 7 years in the factory, it became right. The time was right to make the transition and re-enter back into my profession. That path was not as short and straight. I got a position in a faith organization, a frontline position, caring for individuals with special needs. Within 3 months, an opportunity, a job opening there was a job opening in the corporate office. I applied for that position and got that position as an admin in the corporate office, the department that worked with international partners. So a big part of that position was communicating with donors, writing reports, and just connecting the national office and the international partner and ensuring the communication and the work that was happening was in sync. I describe that experience in my book Beneath the Cracks, chapter 6, when I talk about 12 weeks in the limelight. It started with the call to a job interview. And at the interview, learning that the individual who was chairing the interview was someone that I had gone to the same theological college with. We were in different programs, but at least we knew of each other. It felt almost right. I was offered this position and it felt like, yes, I'm back. I've re-entered my profession. I'm back to get to what I should be doing. I ought to be doing. That position was only to last 3 months. After a grueling periods of evaluation and assessment, upon evaluation, finally my supervisor decided that I was not the right fit for that position. Some of the reasons she gave was keyboarding skills, accent, laughable. I tried to ask for a second opinion, another assessment, because I felt those reasons were just not objective enough. But she had the final say, and that position ended. As I packed my stuff and left that place driving home, I was teary. It felt like this was it. This was a great opportunity for me. I felt like I'm back. I've re-entered back into my profession. What went wrong? It was necessary. That was a necessary experience, but I just didn't feel like that at the moment. The good thing about that experience, difficult as it was, it gave birth to the book Beneath the Cracks. It was during that period, that moment, that felt like I had fallen down. I could not keep this great opportunity that felt a right position for my training and experience and taking me back into my profession. I reflected on that experience and where I found myself at the time. And that's how I was journaling and came up with the book Beneath the Cracks. Chapter 6, titled 12 Weeks on the Limelight, discusses what that felt like. That period of working, what could have looked like a dream job, and then losing it before it even started. In that transition, I got myself the path that I am in right now. Clinical pastoral education. I learned about this field. Providing pastoral care in institutions. It can be a health institution, educational institution, correctional service institution. I ended up in the health institution. Spent some more time in training, taking clinical pastoral education and some practicum internships to lead to where I am today. The path to finding one's vocation may be long and windy. In some cases, it may be short and straight. Whatever the circumstance, however way that path leads, it is great to have the feeling of, I am on it. I am on the path, or I have reached my destination. I'm making a difference. I've dedicated my time, my effort, my life to this vocation, and this is it. This is right. This is my calling. Making a difference on it. I'm inviting Margaret back. We met Margaret last week. Margaret is back to tell us more about her vocational journey, her vocation, so we can hear the rest of the story. Refill your beverage if you need to. Cozy up somewhere. And let us get Margaret back and hear how the story continues, where the path led. I will see you on the other side of the break. Ebenezer. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for sticking around. Last week, we met a good friend, a sister in the Lord, Margaret. She took time, came to meet us and share her story with us. We can now say confidently that in the last 1 week, we have met someone new, we have known something about her, but not everything. And we can never know everything about anyone. We just start in small pieces. And today, Margaret is back. We are talking about vocation. Welcome back, Margaret.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back here, Lauren.
Glad to see you again. And just as a recap, tell our viewers about yourself.
Yeah, so I am, my husband and I, Andrew, we have been married almost 24 years. We're parenting 15-year-old twins. And I just shared a little bit about my story in terms of kind of growing up on a farm. It actually relates a bit to my vocational journey that I'll chat about today, and just a journey of trusting God through those years and in the early years. And today I'll talk a little bit more about having trust God in the rest of my years as well.
You're raising twin teenagers. All power to you. You have done a beautiful job so far. I mentioned last week, and I can testify again, after going through the children's program, they're now volunteers with me side by side in the church. That's great.
Well, they put me on my knees the most. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, talking about raising your children and just what also you're doing, describe your vocational journey so far. Where has God led you, and what's your vocation?
Mm-hmm. So I'll take you on a little bit of a journey and then tell you where I am today. So, I grew up on a farm, and the relevance of that is university degrees wasn't something that wasn't part of our family story. And so when I was completing high school, I didn't even consider university. I went working in a bank, which was helpful. Florence, I talked about last time, I left home at 17 from an unhealthy home environment. And so I had something to support me, but I always had this desire to go overseas and serve missions.
Wow.
Missionaries kept coming to our church, and I'm like, oh, I want to go and be where they are. I want to see what they're doing. And so I did. And I went to Uganda in 1994 to volunteer in a local church. Fantastic year. Not only meeting a lot of people, but it was a time that God helped me, Florence, start to sort out some of the impacts from my upbringing. Mm-hmm. And I met these really cool people professionals doing really neat things. And I'm like, I want to do really cool things. And so I decided I should go back and do this thing called university. And it was there that God told me to go into marketing. And I'm like, I didn't know what marketing was, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do marketing. That sounds like business. I like business. Sure. And so that's what I did when I went back home. I really didn't have anything. I stayed with my sister for a bit as I kind of went back to summer school and get ready to go to university, applied as a mature student and to do a business degree. But it led to this career, Florence, in marketing, and a chance to teach marketing at the university. And so I kind of loved it. It was a place God knew I would like and directed me to. And that's what I ended up doing for about 14 years.
Isn't that wonderful? And just how that desire came about while you were busy serving God in mission field, short-term mission. And having gone for that at your late teens, I must say you are brave. Going across cultures at late teens, that was brave. But that is what makes you the strong person that I know you are. Mm-hmm. Now, what was significant about the path that you took? And the path that took you where you are today?
Where I am today, yeah. So something, after I was in that role for 14 years, I was a mom, I was a wife, and a mom of two small girls, and I began to have this sense of just divine dissatisfaction in my role. And my husband and I just felt like, you know what, God was kind of calling me for that chapter to be closed and to step down. And so I did. I stepped down, and what I thought was going to be a couple of years ended up being a waiting time of much longer, that God needed to do some work in me and continue his healing work in me in that time. Mm-hmm. But what I did know is that I wanted to work in the not-for-profit space. And so, I think through that time and the path that allowed me to get to the point of learning to trust God, to giving that up, was in all my life, I had to rely on God for everything. Trusting God for all of those things, trusting that God would lead me to a godly man I could share my life with, that we could build a family together with, and all of those things allowed me to the point where that I could step out in obedience into a world that was really scary, but to step out and to see what God had for me next.
That's wonderful. Margaret, before you came, I had mentioned something about a vocation. It becomes more important when it is making a difference in people's lives. There is a desire to recommit to something that's making a difference. And you just mentioned that it's something about people making a difference in the non-profit, oh, I can't get my words right.
Not for profit or social
not
profit.
for profit.
I like social profit better.
That's wonderful. Did you have or did you need mentors along the way?
I was so blessed with so many interesting people all the way through my journey. I'm a person who likes to watch people. And so I don't really find myself having one or two mentors. I think I've absorbed in my life lots of great examples and lots of people. And so while it's not one specific mentor, I just feel like my life has been shaped by a lot of people God's brought along my path.
Now, you've been talking about your twins and your wonderful God-loving husband. How have you balanced work and family, and how has that been like?
Yeah, so we share parenting, and we have all the way through found ways when they were young. One would go to work early and come home early. The other would go to work a little later, and little things like that.
Yeah.
We did take time after we adopted our girls off as well. But then I had this mysterious gift of 5 years I never knew to be home and to be with my family, as well, as trying as that 5 years was. But and now the girls are older, and so of course it requires a different kind of balance. What I love is they see us work hard, but they see us love what we do and to do well at it, but never at the expense of family time or for them seeing us put God first in our lives. So we've been blessed with having also jobs that are local and all of those things that have allowed us to balance those. Isn't that Lawrence? Not perfectly, but
oh yes, we all go through doing our best, committing our best. And in your case, it worked so well. You had the 5 years with them, and then you managed to re-enter. So it's just, it worked for the family. Yeah. What would you say is an Ebenezer moment in your vocation? Recount an Ebenezer moment.
Yeah. One of probably the most significant Ebenezer moments in my journey was that period of time when I wasn't working. When I'd stepped out of my corporate career and entered the season of waiting for what God I felt was leading me to, but I didn't know what it was. The first couple of years are great, and you're like, okay, I can spend more time doing Bible study, more time getting, a nice dinner on the table. And then I'm like, I'm really missing work. I really feel like I didn't know how to define myself anymore. Because used to when people meet me and say, hi, and so, what do you do? At first I said, well, I'm the director of marketing. And then I said, well, I was the director of marketing. And then I said, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. And I really started struggling with wondering if I had made the right choice. I couldn't figure out how to make the switch to social profit. And, it started just getting impatient and didn't always wait in that time well. Yeah. But what I really learned is that for years, I had learned to strive hard because I had to be my own safety net. Yes, I had a husband and all. It's not the same as not having your own family there, though, to feel that security that you didn't have as a child. And so God had to work some things through me in that time, and to take away a lot of the striving, the self-dependence. He wanted to just heal another part of me that I needed to be healed. And so I started to lose passion and positivity for work, and because I was getting frustrated. And interestingly enough, it wasn't until I actually surrendered that and I said, God, you know what? Give me my passion back for work because I miss it. I want to work. I love it. I was able to start surrendering and working through some of those things. And then it was interesting because then within a few months later, God led me into a new role that I would have never dreamt of myself. I was speaking with someone in the community who said, hey, there's this job in fundraising. I'm like, fundraising? I don't do fundraising. And anyway, I ended up sending in a resume thinking, it's kind of like marketing. maybe I could do that. But I remember putting my cover letter, even if you don't hire me, I just want to talk to you about how I can use my corporate skills
Yes.
in the social profit space. And a few weeks later, I had a job offer, and my husband and I were like, God opened the door. Are we doing this? I don't know if I can do this. So my husband has just said, Margaret, just walk through it. If God opens it, walk through it, he'll equip you. And so that was almost 6 years ago of being able to live out my faith now in a way in this organization, learn and grow and lead and part of the leadership team, and being able to care for the most vulnerable in our community, which is what God calls us to do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Margaret. I have a similar story, and one day we'll go out after the pandemic for a cup of tea and tell you the story about just re-entering the timing. You know, Moses had believed that the time was right to serve God and wanted to do something. And then there was that period of waiting at a point where he felt, well, it's okay. I don't have to now lead the children of Israel. I'll just be a good father and a good husband and live my life in the desert and just forget everything. And that's when God comes and calls him and says, now it's time to go back and to do something. So thank you for sharing that.
He shapes us in the waiting, doesn't he?
As we end, Margaret, in your vocational journey right now, what are your dreams or your hopes? What are the prayers moving forward in what you do?
Right now, I think my prayer in this area is very simple. God, if I'm supposed to do something, I just want to be where he wants me to be. And I know that's not specific, but I've learned when I try to guess what he wants next for me, I always get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to just say, Lord, what do you have next for me?
Yeah.
And trust that he's going to lead in that and he's going to take care of that.
That's a great testimony. Thank you for sharing your time and sharing your story and just loving us and trusting us with that story. It's a blessing to see where God has brought you. I see you, we see each other in church, and we know a little bit of each other, about each other, but to know where God has brought you from and the lessons you've learned, and for us to benefit from those lessons is a blessing.
Oh, you're right. It's such a joy to be able to share what God has done and to proclaim his faithfulness, right? So thank you for the opportunity to do that for us.
Thank you for joining us in Ebenezer, and may God bless you.
You're welcome. Blessings.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on Ebenezer. We've been reflecting on the topic of vocational journey, how it's different for everyone. And today we had a second conversation with Margaret, our guest who first joined us in the previous episode, introduced herself, and today she now gave a little bit of a story of the path that she took to her vocation. Some people are born into certain family legacies, complete with what is expected of them, what their vocation should be. Others, they go through life trying different paths, almost trial and error, either based on their passion, on their interests, on their aptitude, on their skills, and then at some point they get a happy medium, something that works best for them. Our guest today mentioned how she started her vocational journey, and when they started a family, she took time away. She took a break to focus on raising the children. And then after a period of time when it felt right, she re-entered her path back to her vocation and is now serving in a non-for-profit, making a difference in people's lives. I too shared my journey of re-entering my path. Sometimes we do different things in life. I did take time away when I was having my children and worked part-time, but it was specifically when I migrated to Canada that I sensed like I took a detour off of my vocational path and served in the industry as a general labor. For a period of time, it was necessary. But then a time came when I re-entered into the path to full-time ministry. It was great to speak with Margaret and learn something about her. learn her story, and just appreciate where God has led her, sharing her Ebenezer moments with us. Hopefully, your vocation ties in with your calling in life and offers you opportunities to serve humanity at different levels, at different stages. In the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 10, we read, "So that you will walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, to please Him in all respects, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God." So that we walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. In everything we do, we bear fruit, we increase in knowledge and in good work. And then 2 Thessalonians 3:7-10. I like that one. "For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example," Paul writes. "We were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's food without paying for it. On the contrary, we worked night and day, laboring and toiling so that we would not be a burden to any of you. We did this not because we did not have the right to such help, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you to imitate. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." We work out of necessity sometimes. We work sometimes to make ends meet, to earn a living. But it's so important when that work also aligns with serving God. When we give back those gifts, that time, the talent, the knowledge, the education we have received, back to God as a gift and serve Him and His people. On behalf of all of us here and on behalf of the Ebenezer team, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for spending part of your morning with us. And we hope that your week ahead will be a gentle week. As we reflect on life, as we invite guests, we get an opportunity to meet new people, to witness their stories, to learn something about them, and to glorify God with them as they recount their testimonies, mark their stones of help, and share God's love with all of us. Take some time and share your own stories with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, people in your faith community, people you work with. Share your stories as able. Mark God's goodness. May God bless you.